All right. Well, we're back for another one of our conversations for this series we're doing in December, the quote-unquote 12 days of KRUXmas. And glad to have the opportunity today to speak with someone that I'm sure most of you are familiar with, but maybe haven't had a chance to hear from as much, and that's Corli Krohn. And looking forward to spending a little bit of time talking about, just a little bit getting to know her, a little bit about language, and some reflections on the year, and the different activities, the different talks from this year. So, Corli, it's good to have you, and I appreciate you taking a little bit of time in this busy time of year just to chat.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Tyler. I'm happy to be here. It's fun to have these conversations. So thank you.
Yeah, and so just to start out, can you introduce yourself a little bit, and you can share whatever it is you would like to share just about yourself.
Okay, so yes, my name is Corli, and I never thought I would be back in this town. I grew up in this town and then shook the dust off my feet, so to speak. Got married, went overseas, lived in the South Peninsula for 10 lovely years, then went overseas again, and then found myself back in this town. I'm married to James, and we have 5 children, and we have started and have run a ministry here in Stellenbosch called KRUX for the last 10 years. I'm also a homeschooler, and I teach English as a foreign language to international students, and that should be good.
Yeah, and not just English as a second language, but at least for personal experience, you also teach Afrikaans as a second language.
Yes, you and Christina are my guinea pigs, so I hope they gave you a discount.
Yeah, so I think related to that then, I'm just curious a bit about your background in terms of just what you studied, or how this interest in language or involvement in so many things with language came about.
Well, for me, the language thing actually comes a long way. My father was a poetry quoting aerobatics pilot who became an aeronautical engineer. So there was lots of poetry in our home, and he taught me to read before I went to school. And I think mostly thanks to him, I just kind of fell in love with words and what they can do. Someone said that the true alchemists are the people who can turn the world into words. So it's always been there. The language thing has always been there. And I also think that language, it actually lies quite close to God. It's so ordered, but it's so organic and alive and creative within its structures, and it just reminds me of the universe that God created, in that sense. But also, language really touches the essence of being and meaning in us as humans. If you think, without communication, if all of us were completely cut off from communicating with one another tomorrow, there wouldn't be that much left in the world, really. Okay, there's money and sex, but still, there's not a lot left if you take words out. It is one of those really powerful things in the world, actually.
Yeah.
And we don't think about it a lot. But the other thing that I love about language, it's this wonderful power that opens doors to other cultures and other worlds and other people's individual stories also. It really gives you access to another person's humanity.
Yeah.
And something that I love is story. Both the the need and the privilege to listen and hear and receive somebody else's story, but also our own stories and telling our own stories, and everything we can learn from each other's stories, and how we can be blessed and enriched by each other's stories. So I love that language can open those doors for us. And stories in the end really are what we live by to a great extent. And it really humanizes other people. So I love that at Multilingua, where I teach English, we have Korean students, we have Middle Eastern students, and those cultures are so different from ours, they're so foreign. But once you start going down the language bridge, and you get a glimpse into the other person's culture and world, and you can hear them, it's a great way to resist what's going on in the world with all this dehumanizing of certain groups of people. And I could keep going on about language for a very long time. I'm very interested in the substance of story and the power of being, because I think human soul is such a magnificent thing. And the weight of our lives is actually incredible. So I feel quite stubborn about this.
Yeah, no, I mean, even thinking about this in relation to God, even thinking that God has placed us within an unfolding story of what He is doing in the world, and that we're sort of caught up in that.
Yes.
I mean, so you just have these different layers.
Yes.
And I think also what you were sharing, it reminded me, for me serving as a pastor, 2 words came to mind. It was privilege and value.
Yes.
And that in terms of hearing stories, it is an incredible privilege for me, that people would share them and that people would allow me to share as well.
Yes.
And then value with regard to language, as much of a beginner as I am in Afrikaans, that even making the effort or having a bit of conversation with someone and stumbling along a few words or just typing out a sentence, the value that conveys of saying, I know that I'm not particularly good at this, or I don't know it well, but I want to honor your language, your culture, your background, and that we communicate more than just the words that we say when we do those sort of things.
Yes, and that is also the wonderful thing for me about words, is because it's never really about the words, it's about this whole sacred weight that they carry in terms of life, the universe, and everything, because anyway, I'm blabbing on, but in the end, to me, the nothing is unsacred. There is no secular. Everything belongs to God and is under Christ. There's sacred and desecrated, but there's not sacred and secular.
No, I think that's a good way of thinking about everything, right? In that sense. Shifting a little bit then to thinking about this past year, what are a couple of highlights or things that have stood out to you in this past year from some of the talks or seminars or various things that went on? There was a lot going on with KRUX this year. So
there were so many wonderful talks, Thursday night talks, and what I love about them is their variety and how there's so much in life to engage with. But I think one that stood out for me, there's two, but one of them is the talk on rest. And I think this year for me has been a year of really coming up against my limits. And, people have said to me that your enthusiasm outstrips your capacity. And yes, that is true. Of course I can do that, that sounds like a great idea. I'm sure I can fit it in somewhere. I am going to make it happen. I will find the space or a way. So I think it's a, and I'm talking about rest other than the Sabbath rest, you
Sure.
know, bigger than
Yeah.
Sundays
Mm-hmm.
and Sabbath. I think rest, what I learned from the talk also is that it's a return to humility, a place of humility, of recognizing and accepting my limits
Yeah.
and what is humanly possible
Yeah.
to do in a single day. And, you know, I think I have a kind of ambition for this needs to be done, and it will be a good thing for it to be done, and therefore I will do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but to just that humility to realize actually no.
Yeah.
Because really the culture we live in, it doesn't stop. You know, our phones are almost always on. If we get tired, we drink coffee.
Yeah.
If we have a headache, we drink a pill. If we really sick, we medicate the symptoms away and we keep going.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even the shops are open all the time. I remember when I lived in Stellenbosch as a child, Saturday 1 o'clock, the shops closed and they only opened again on Monday. So there was a sense of rest, a sense of stop, but nothing stops. And we don't stop. We just keep going and keep going and keep going. And I know we can't just abscond our responsibilities, you know.
Yeah.
We have to fulfill our obligations, but we have to have the humility to accept our limits and find rhythms of rest.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the talk they spoke a lot about rhythms of rest. So I think
Yeah.
to consciously step out of this constantly on culture that we live in our modern day, where nothing stops, the news doesn't stop, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the YouTube doesn't stop, Netflix don't stop, nothing stops.
Increasingly, the university and
Yes.
education,
Yes.
yeah, even asking students to come on the
I
weekend
know,
or doing
and
research, it never, it doesn't stop.
Oh, I have so many rants about this. Like, they want kids to do maths classes in holiday. I'm like, are you insane? They're like, but they don't remember. I'm like, then you're teaching them wrong. But kids need boredom. They need to be bored and frustrated. That's when they start discovering who they are and what they're about and what they like, and be inventive and creative. So
this is a common thing I hear in the house. Our daughters, I'm bored, and I say, "Oh, that's good."
Well, in
and
our
then
house,
I get a look.
That's actually probably a better way to deal with it, because in our house, if you utter the words "I'm bored," you will immediately be given work. I'm so glad you're bored. I have a pile of laundry that really needs folding, or you know, the stove needs cleaning, or the dog poop needs picking up. So we don't hear those words in our house, but to you know, find rhythms of rest, whatever they are for you. And for me, I always need a good book on hand. If I have a book with just good, profound, well characterized people in it, and it's well written, and somewhere in it, even if it's hidden, you know, there's hope and reverence for life.
Yes.
That I can just go. I'm tired. I've just taught the whole morning with the kids. We've made lunch. I clean up. I take my book. I go sit outside in the sun. That's rest for me. Also, you know, since the kids were little, for 24 years, every week I take them into the mountains. And it's just a space of rest for us. If they, you know, I find them, they connect with each other, they start playing again. I lie next to the river. I do nothing. And they know it's not a time where nobody needs to entertain anybody. You know, find a stick and play with it. And it's so deeply restful and restorative. We need nature. So yes, so it was a bit of a rebuke for me to just realize that, you know, you can't just keep going. You have to not just go to the mountains once a week with your kids and once a week by yourself on Sundays. That helps and that's really good, but have the humility to be a human with limits and prioritize those times of rest and ask for help and all those things that are not always so easy.
Yeah, I think the way that those challenge sort of our ability to sort of say like I'm self-sufficient, or that I can just go to do my own thing. It's almost as if God is reminding us that we exist not only as creatures, but also that we're in community as creatures.
Yes.
So those aspects of we're dependent on God, but also we need each other. And there are times when, that has to be expressed.
Yes.
Or it has to be, or it's also, all right, now I need rest. I'm stepping away from, but the intent is that, I'm always going to enter into community again.
Yes.
That's, I think, what I appreciated about that talk.
Yes.
Was he said that it wasn't about balance.
Yes.
But it was about creating rhythms of rest.
Absolutely.
Not just trying to like weigh them up and see if you're resting enough or getting this and that.
It needs to become a new way of living. Yeah.
And so you said that was one highlight.
Yes.
But there was another?
The other one that really got me thinking is there was a talk about intergenerational church. And the framework of it was that very extensive research have found that for children to retain their faith, they need 5 or more people of faith in their lives that they are connected with that are not their parents. And what that then led into is an understanding of how important it is to have intergenerational community in our church and in our lives. For example, this works in interesting ways. I mean, there's obvious examples like, say, you have a young couple and they're overwhelmed with their small children and working out marriage and everything like that. If an older couple can come and build a relationship with them, that's going to be so helpful. Or even things like one of the stories he told was where an older person was very disillusioned with God and struggling, and how they were bolstered and encouraged by the childlike faith of a little one who just had that childlike trust in God. And also how, a lot of younger children, they really look up to teenagers. There's a bit of hero worship going on there, and the teenagers have a lot to give to this young child in being an example of faith and leading them in faith living. And they've also found that it's extremely beneficial for the teenagers to have that kind of accountability and relationship. I really... another one of my pet peeves is this whole idea, teenagers, they're useless, their brains aren't even developed yet, they can't do consequences. I'm like, it's because they have no real responsibilities. Give them real responsibilities. I promise you those neural pathways are going to develop super quick. 16-year-olds went to war and had children and ran farms. They can do it. So I really love that idea of the intergenerational blessing, and how much are old people blessed by babies? They just can't help it, And I also think of a story of this elderly man who went to the hospital and held the babies that were there a long time. He had the time, he had the patience, and the fussy babies whose parents couldn't be there, he held them. So I think we lose so much that, and that's something that the Western approach, the institutionalization of life has really robbed us of this, because the little kids are in daycare, the big kids are, I'm really sorry about
No, that's all right.
life. the kids are in school segregated by age. And seriously, if you're in grade 5, you are definitely better than grade 4. And you don't play together.
You've moved beyond that.
Oh, my word. And even in church, there's Sunday school for the kids and sorry, let me just put this on airplane mode.
Yes.
I should have done this before I came.
No, it's all right. No, I mean, I think, this is a big thing for me as well with church stuff. And, so most of my ministry over the years has been in university settings. And yet, for me, one of the things I would always sort of come back to for students was telling them how necessary it was for them to be involved in the local congregation that went beyond simply being students.
Yes, I remember we spoke about this.
Yeah, and so that's always been a very significant thing for me. And even in my own life, I would always meet with a retired architect for coffee from our previous congregation. And there was no agenda. It was just that connection and relationship, and sharing that as two people in Christ, right?
Yes. There's so many riches there that we lose when we don't have that. I'm also thinking when we pastored the little church on Bowen Island in Canada. One of the teenagers in church. One of his best friend was a 100-year-old man who you would come every summer to visit his son, and it was so lovely to see that very real friendship there. And I mean, why not?
Yeah, I think I've been encouraged. So sort of two quick examples. I've been encouraged within our own congregation, so Stellenbosch International Fellowship. Seeing a few new local faces, getting connected, and the opportunities that connecting with people from around the world. So you have generational things, but also cultural difference, and life, sort of where you're at in life, being a young couple or single. So I've been encouraged seeing some of those things happen. One of my constant prayers is that God would bring two families, right? Because I think of the way in which families as a unit with children and this sort of how that, it affects the dynamics, and I would say positively.
Absolutely.
And then the other example is, I've heard several stories of people locally who, they were at university, they were in a student congregation, and this is not at all a knock against student ministries, but how significant it was for them when they found a local church that, they got to know families, they got to know older people, they could hear children in the service, just all those types of things. And so, I was actually so disappointed to miss that talk. I was in the U.S. at the time, so I'm glad to hear it was. I'm glad to hear it went well, and obviously, at least for you, it was impactful, and I'm sure for others as well.
Yes, just a different way of thinking about these things. Just helpful.
So, as we're sort of landing the plane here, is there anything else about the year that you just want to share, or maybe what you're looking forward to?
I think another thing that I really, and I mean, we have to learn these lessons over and over again, but when you take God seriously and the things that He tells us to do seriously, even though it feels sometimes so hard and weird and silly to do some of these things, or even just like bad advice, it really works. Especially in terms of relationships. When we just lower ourselves to be under God's ways, we really follow God's ways with all our hearts. it really always amazes me what happens. You know, we maybe it's just me, you know, we try so hard to fix things and make things go right, but hey, God's ways, it's death, yes, but there's resurrection on the other side, you know, and there's a saying that says, miracles shall follow miracle and wonders will never cease. And I think that is the Christian life, because God does so much for us, so many small wonders, very personal miracles that we know are special things that He's done for us. And to see how much that is true, what I really just being reminded of again is, hey, just go all out, just surrender, just do things God's way.
Yeah.
You can't lose, and it's an incredibly exciting and very loving, personally attentive adventure that you embark on. It's actually wrong. It's so lavish, you know. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think from whether it's thinking about the words we use, the stories that we hear or tell, or if it's about rest, humility, or what the community in Christ looks like. I think there's plenty in this conversation for people to reflect on and spend a little bit of time thinking about. So, Corli, I just thank you for your time, and hope this is useful for people. So, thanks, and we'll be back again with another one of our talks later in the week.